In today's episode, I recount some of my observations dating as a 30-year-old male in 2025. Welcome to Monologues by Hassie. Dating as a 30-year-old guy has definitely been very interesting, and it's probably been the best that it's ever been for me. I got to experience this last year where I actually set a goal to date with abundance, and I learned a lot about what I like and what I don't like, and just became a lot more confident in myself when it came to re-entering the dating world, because I took such a long hiatus from it. And so coming into 2025, a couple of things have changed. I actually deleted all my dating apps at the end of last year, so in November, and I said, I'm kind of going to raw dog dating. I'm going to get out there in the real world and go meet people, preferably face to face, and see how that goes. And it's not to say that I will never use a dating app again, but I just wanted to experience what life is going to be like without using any dating apps at all. And it's been interesting, I'd say. I think the biggest thing I've noticed is obviously on a dating app, at least in my experience and for me, it was very easy to get maybe a large volume of dates. And I say that like respectively speaking. That's different for every people. Maybe there's going to be a very attractive girl out there who is inundated with messages, which was not the case for me. But I've never had a really hard time using the apps, but they weren't really leading to the results I wanted. And so I said, go out in person, get off it. For me, I think a big reason was they're just such a waste of time. Like the amount of swipes or likes you're sending out versus like the effort versus the reward. It was just taking a lot of life and energy out of things I'd rather be doing, and I wanted to spend less time on my phone and preferably actually speaking to people. So this year's been a bit different. I'm definitely kind of looking at doing more activities and things that I enjoy and hopefully meeting people in those activities. I've also tried out a few in-person dating events, not so much speed dating, but more like those events where they get a bar, they stick a bunch of single people in it, and they let you kind of go wild on each other, which yields interesting results. And that's what I want to get into in this episode. So it's been a few months since I've gotten off the apps and been doing this kind of in-person thing. And I'm very much sometimes feel like I'm David Attenborough and we're on the safari and we're watching the male animals and the female animals do their mating rituals. And it's such an interesting thing to see men and women interact. And these dating events, there's definitely pros and cons to them. But it's very interesting because you're basically in an environment where everybody is single. So in between me actually talking to people I'm interested in, I always have enjoyed the aspect of people watching, and I have a small group of friends who are still single, different age ranges, but it's really interesting to learn from everyone's perspectives and how they're doing and what they're getting out of these things. And so today, let's go through a few observations I've made, and I'm going to split this up into whether I see it more in men, whether I see it more in women, and whether it affects both genders at a pretty even rate. So I think the first one is being too shy and not making a move when you're in person. Whether you're at one of these in-person events, whether you're at a bar or a club, whether you're simply in public. I think the biggest thing holding a lot of guys and a lot of girls back is the fact that they're unwilling to stop being shy. And you might still be shy when you go and approach somebody, but they're unwilling to make a move. And I think that's the big thing. Now, there's different reasons for why I think this manifests in men and women. For a lot of guys, what happens is there's something called the Matthew principle, right? So in general, somebody who's had success in a particular skill or area, that success will compound. So if I successfully approach somebody or go on a date or have a girlfriend or a relationship, then I become confident about my ability to do that in the future, which leads to increased opportunities. But for both men and women, there are subsets of people who have unfortunately not had those experiences for a variety of reasons up until a certain point in time, and they've decided to become very serious about it now. What I love seeing at these events is when young people, both guys and girls, come out and they're giving it a crack. And I think I met somebody recently who was this 25-year-old guy. I was talking to him at one of these events, and I said, man, I'm glad you're here. Like, you might think that you're having a really sucky time, but I'm like, I did not have your confidence to come out to something like this at your age. And to be fair, that wasn't particularly my priority when I was 25, but I'm like, good for you. You're going to build these skills. Go get rejected many times. And this is one of those things where until, you go out on your first date and you have that experience. Sometimes it just doesn't happen for people. And so there is a big hesitation, especially amongst, I think, a bulk of guys who have just not had enough dating experience. And you see that a lot at these events. And so there's a lot of guys who are there kind of interacting with women, sometimes for the first time. And I guess the big benefit of being in person is maybe they're at least getting the opportunity to go and put their foot forward. But unfortunately, what I see at a lot of these events is a lot of guys who stay in the corner and are too afraid to approach anyone. And the same goes for a lot of women. And for women, again, I think there's multiple reasons. If you have been conditioned to using the apps as a woman, you are probably used to. You're probably used to being inundated with people who are interested, who are liking you, who are swiping you. And yes, they might not always be coming for the right intentions, but you're probably used to a lot of activity and you're used to being passive in the dating process. And that does change both as time goes on when you're in your 20s versus in your 30s. What I found is the most successful people I know, and I spoke to a former colleague a few weeks ago who is in a great relationship right now, but she said, when she got serious about dating, and of course, she has the ability to do this, it's probably much easier to do this as a woman than a guy, and obviously the more attractive you are on a dating app, the kind of better this works out. But everything is possible for the people who really set an intention and work to it. What she did is she set as many coffee dates as she could for a month. She literally did 3 to 4 coffee dates every week with new people. All she was doing was meeting them and seeing who she vibed with. And after a month, she found a great guy, is in a relationship. And of course, some people are going to say, wow, Hassie, how the hell do you get 4 dates a week? Like, that's crazy. That's a crazy number. And I'm saying, yes, that is hard. Like, if you're a guy listening to this, then that might be challenging if you haven't become a calibrated person and learned how to work these systems. But for a lot of women, it might be possible to go, very possible, to go on 4 coffee dates a week. And the key is you might not be super into everybody that you're having coffee with, but you're starting the process. It's like working a muscle. You are going to the gym. And so having the courage to be less shy and to actually make a move, be it on a dating app, be it in person, whether you need to go and talk to somebody, there's somebody who piques your interest, go and make that move. And this is, again, a common thing I see in men and women. There's different reasons for it. I think with the women, it's more they're used to being approached either online or in person. And sometimes if there's many women in an event, there's going to be a small minority who get all the attention. And you might not be one of the women getting those attention. You know what? Screw it. Because often I will meet people who I wouldn't say are my type, but you have a conversation with them and you're like, okay, cool. Maybe we should get coffee because this was an interesting chat. And so you should go out there and approach people. I think it's a very attractive thing if a woman does come up to you. Same thing goes for the guys. Go and approach somebody. Yes, they might not be interested. I think for everybody, rejection will happen. It's very important not to get into a very negative mindset. I see a lot of people creating this negative feedback loop where they get rejected and they feel bad, and then that kind of compounds and they stop approaching and they stop the process. But rejection is going to happen just because you're interested in somebody, or you might not even be super interested in them, but you're just interested in getting to know them a bit better over a 20 to 30 minute coffee. If you are going to give up at every rejection, even for the most attractive people on the planet, they get rejected. They might not get rejected at the same rate that you or I might, but they're still getting rejected. I don't think there's a single person who does not get rejected, either in a romantic, platonic, or even business sense. It's just something that happens. It's something that you have to deal with. Now, for the subset of men who are good at dating, the beauty is, and I'd say that at least when it comes to rejection, I'm very comfortable with it. In fact, when I go out and meet people, I'm often seeking a rejection because it makes life easy for me. Once I've been rejected, cool, you've ruled out an option, and I can very politely thank somebody for their time and move on. Whereas if you are unwilling to go get rejected, first of all, if you're too scared of rejection, then you're not going to make an attempt. And if you're not making an attempt, then you're never going to meet your goal, be it in dating, be it in business, be it whatever it is that you're trying to do. Go and get rejected. And when you do get rejected, take it gracefully. Be polite. I think I see a lot of guys, especially some of the less calibrated guys, they will get rejected and they will take it horribly. They will say, oh, well, that girl was a 6 out of 10. She shouldn't have rejected me. No, that's a stupid mentality. She wasn't interested. There could be millions of reasons somebody might not be interested or might not be available. don't take it personally. They just weren't into you, so that's the end of it. Why are you even concerned and worrying yourself about somebody who has now expressed that they're not interested in getting to know you further? In fact, I've gotten to the point where I'm very ruthless. Like, as soon as I've asked somebody for a coffee, sent them a text, and if they come back and say, sorry, Hassie, we're not interested, the number, I thank them for their time, tell them it was great to meet them, and their number literally gets deleted. Should any of these people ever message me back and say, I changed my mind, I would literally have to look up who the hell is this person. I'd have to ask them, hey, sorry, who is this? Right? Because what I'm trying to do is get as many leads in my pipeline. So the next thing, and this is one thing I see at these in-person events, and I think this one is more relevant to women, is they're afraid to end a conversation because it might seem rude. And this really hurts you if you've gone to an in-person event, or maybe you've met somebody in public, somebody's approached you in a bid to seem very nice and very polite. I always see this. There's women who will maintain a conversation and I can visibly see that it's not going well, right? When I'm observing people. And they're too unafraid to say, hey, it was nice to speak to you, but I'm going to go and get a drink or go talk to somebody else. You can say that. Just thank them, be polite. And I think there's a few reasons for this. I think this is the same reason why women do soft rejections with guys, like give out a number when they're not interested, is there is a fear that guys will react badly. And that is that is a very real fear, because as I mentioned, there are guys who I've seen who do take things like rejection very badly. At the same time, you have to place a little bit of faith that you can end a conversation, because if you're at one of these singles mixes or in public or at a bar or whatever, you've got a limited amount of time to go and speak to people. So if you do see somebody or you're having a conversation and you're like, you know what, this conversation's okay, but I'm not really feeling it and not really enjoying this conversation, thank the person for their time and move on. It's polite for you. You're being polite to yourself. I think that's the most important thing. A lot of women, in just trying to please other people and trying to please somebody you're speaking to, you will waste your own time. It's also polite to the person that you're talking to, because you're not leading them on and you're letting them go and speak to somebody else they might have a better connection with. And so that is probably the best thing to do for everyone. So don't be afraid to end the conversation. And for the guys, it's not understanding. I think this one's a challenging one, but I see this when a lot of guys are not aware that there's a lack of interest in the other party. So this is the counterpoint where men aren't picking up that the person they're speaking to is not interested. Now, this can be easy to happen. I think if you're really into somebody, same thing. I think this happens to women as well, but it's something that I see more with men, is that generally reading social cues for some guys can be very challenging. They're not attuned to it. They're not able to pick up the cues of attraction or interest, and consequently, conversations just go too long. The moment I speak to somebody, if I pick up very clear signs that they're not interested, I'm not joking, within 10 to 30 seconds, I'll thank them for their time, say, hey, it was nice to talk to you, and go off. It is not my goal to have unproductive conversations if somebody's energy is not right. But not everybody is able to pick up on those signs. So it's important to think about what you like, but it's important to also gauge what the other person's energy is. Remember, no one is obligated to be attracted to you. This is, as I said, rejection is part of the game, but also no one's obligated to be attracted to you, and you're not obligated to be attracted to anyone. It goes both ways, but learn to read the signs of interest. This is a very challenging thing. It's, I think, easier said than done for certain people. This comes with experience. This comes with going out, getting rejected, going on dates. It's a skill that is really built over time. So the only way to kind of learn it is to get out there. Now, the next one is, I think, a lack of accountability and not being retrospective about past actions and thinking about how you deal with guys. I think this is saying, I wasn't into that guy after it happened. So the next point I want to make is, I'm going to term this one as lack of accountability, but also just more broadly, not being retrospective about decisions you've made in the past. And this is an everyone problem. And I think a common example of this is not being very clear and thinking back about how previous dating situations have gone for you. If there's a reason something didn't work out, what were your actions in that not working out? You can't control what somebody else did, but you can control what you did in that situation. And something I hear so often from people who are struggling with relationships and dating, it's, well, all these other people are horrible. There's something wrong with them. What's wrong with all these guys? What's wrong with all these girls, etc., etc. And they're not taking accountability for what they are doing. Maybe there's something that you can improve, and that's going to make success come to you versus you focusing on things outside your control. So lack of accountability, I think it's really unattractive, at least for me. If I come across anybody in a dating environment and it seems like they're just blaming everybody else, sometimes I've literally heard kill all men, right? You hear that come from women. At the same time, you'll hear kill all men, and simultaneously I'd like a really good guy go hand to hand. And if a guy is a good guy and a great guy, he's going to hear that and run in the other direction. Same goes for guys. If you're going around and not being accountable for you and saying, man, there's something wrong with this girl I approached, and you're taking that rejection really badly, and it might have nothing to do with you, but if that's your response to rejection, maybe there is something that you do need to fix. I think the ability to be retrospective about what you are doing when you are dating is super attractive, and just by not being able to be retrospective, you're not actually improving yourself as you go forward, be it in who you are or what you're looking for. I think a lot of people really need to be honest with themselves, and you don't see a lot of that. And so, like I said, I've been thinking about dating intentionally for a while now. I did an episode last year called Algorithms to Date by the Computer Science Behind Finding a Wife. You can go listen to it. But being somebody who's really thought about what I want, it now makes me realize how many people I meet who don't actually know what it is they want, which I'll come to later. So another big one I see, and this one again, really I do see in men and women in pretty equal proportions, is thinking about me. And this is a big one where everyone thinks about what they want. You have a laundry list of what you want in a partner, and that's what you're looking for. And how many of those values do you actually live? And so in the dating environment, it's very important that you need to know what you want, of course. And it's nice for you to have a list. And in fact, that's probably better than people who don't have a list and who don't know what they're doing, who are flying completely blind. But when you're in an environment like that, you need to sell yourself. And for men, I think this is something that, you need to work on your marketing, and you also need to work on your sales. So there is a difference. Marketing is getting other people to come to you. So I think if you genuinely live your values, you will eventually in time be a more marketable product. When I decided to make health and fitness more important in my life, being one of the values that I'm striving for myself and also looking for in a partner, naturally I started looking better. I started losing weight, becoming more muscular, becoming a lot fitter person, healthier. That improved my marketing. That just means there's more people who are receptive to what I'm doing. So by living your values, I think you improve your marketing. You improve who you are. You become more attractive to other people when they come across you. But it's also important to do sales. And that is going out there, going to the market. And dating is a market. I know it's maybe unattractive to think about dating in the same way we think about the economy, but dating really is a market, and things change as you go through different phases in life. And so it's very important that you need to go out there and sell yourself. Now, there is a caveat to when I say you need to go out and sell yourself. Obviously, you want to put your best foot forward and let people know about who you are and what you do and why you might be a good partner for them. But here's where I draw the line. I've made it a goal to become very good at sales this year. That is predominantly a professional goal, but obviously that flows into other aspects of life, including dating and relationships. Even if, hypothetically, I could become the world's best salesperson and convince anybody to do absolutely anything, I draw the line when it comes to dating in terms of overselling yourself. When I do meet someone, I do need to get out there and make the introduction and do the cold approach and speak to somebody, be it whether it's in the street, at a cafe, at one of these in-person dating events or online dating. I need to go out there and sell, but I never want to convince somebody that I'm somebody they should be with or somebody that they should just go for a coffee for. I want them to have values that are aligned with. I don't want to go through somebody's objections and convince them that I'm somebody they should like. I will only sell myself up to a point, and you want to allow the other person to come to a conclusion, whether they want to go and see you again for a coffee. And remember, at every stage you go through in your dating, you'll decide whether either you want to keep seeing the person, whether they don't want to see you, whether you both don't want to see each other. That's a decision you'll make at every stage until you actually go ahead and formalize a relationship. But up until that point, it is very important to focus, like to actually sell yourself. It's great to think about me. But the most unattractive people I meet when I'm dating are, again, and this kind of goes in with the lack of accountability and lack of, I think, being retrospective, is sometimes there are people who are physically very attractive, but the fact that they don't actually give two shits about what the other person in front of them actually wants. When you're selling something, what you're actually trying to do is solve a problem somebody else has. Now, in dating, it's a bit different. You're trying to figure out whether you're also attracted to them. So you do need to think about the other person to a certain extent, but don't over push it at the same time, because you want to allow somebody to naturally come to a conclusion. I think what everybody wants deep down is to be liked and loved for whoever they are, not for a fake persona they put on. So work on your marketing, which I think is just living by your values. Because over time, you will start to transform and become somebody who attracts the people they want to. And at the same time, when you do run into people, put yourself forward. For guys, this is obvious. As men, very few men, especially if you're an average guy, are going to get approached. So you better be going out there and getting rejected. But I think a lot of women as well, especially as they go from that kind of 20s age demographic and they move into the 30s age demographic. And if you're single, then you do need to be more proactive. And much like the guys, actually get out there and help people, give them the opportunity to get to know you. You have to become a saleswoman, so to speak, because that is something that's going to happen. You can't expect how dating occurred in your 20s to be the same as it is with your in your 30s. And that is just the way things work. Like I said, as a guy, it's surprisingly easier in certain respects. It's harder in other respects. I think it's pretty great. Definitely enjoying the process, but you need to not only focus on me, go out there, sell yourself, but don't do it too hard. Now, the big one I see, and I already briefly mentioned on this, is not actually knowing what you want. If you do listen to that episode I talked about where I'm using algorithms to go and find a wife, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes, I thought very deeply about what it is I'm looking for in a long-term partner. But you meet a lot of people, and sometimes it's just that they're young and they haven't given it thought. But when you meet people who don't know what they want, it makes things very hard. In fact, for me, it's quite easy because I do know what I want, so I can quickly filter out people. I think what happens more commonly is I will meet somebody and maybe I'm attracted to them in the physical sense, or there's clear chemistry. And this has actually happened where a girl has gotten my number, but I know from the 1 hour conversation we had that this person doesn't actually fit my value system. So I went and deleted her number immediately. That sounds harsh. It sounds cruel. She actually never messaged me, but she's the one who asked for my number. So she was probably expecting me to message her. But I knew from a get-go that this is not something that I want to pursue. I already figured out from the first hour that this is a huge value mismatch, despite there being some sort of chemistry there. And that is a super powerful thing. And like going out and about, I realized that at the same time, I think I'm very generous in the sense that I'm not expecting there to be a crazy massive spark off the bat. I'm happy to give everybody like one coffee outside of the initial environment I meet them in, of course. Unless, as I mentioned before, there's a very clear value mismatch. Now, that doesn't mean my values are better than the other person. What I'm saying is that I've thought about what I want. So when I see something I don't want, I can be very clear about not pursuing that path. And I think if more people knew what they wanted, you could more effectively sort through the people you meet. And I think the last kind of major point I want to talk about is there is definitely a benefit of doing it in person, dating in person and going to these events. It just means that for some people, if somebody would have swiped right or left on you on an app, you might actually have the opposite reaction in real life. Maybe there's somebody who you would have matched with on an app because, you're both a certain level of attractive and you find each other attractive. But in person, you quickly realize that, beyond physical, there's nothing here. There's no intellectual stimulation or whatever it is that you're looking for that's more intangible. And you might have the opposite scenario where there's somebody who you wouldn't stereotypically go for. And you know what? You've had a great conversation with them. So that's the benefit. One of the huge cons of, I think, doing these like in-person dating events is you can't really control who's coming. And that can be problematic because you might not have anybody in the demographic you're looking for. Sometimes everyone's going to be super young, super old. You can't really control who comes through the door. And yes, there are like age range dating events. I find that as a 30-year-old guy, you're kind of at a weird spot. You sometimes might be too old for some groups and you might be too young for others. And sometimes it's just a really small pool of people. Maybe there's 50, 60 people. And in that environment, one of the dangers you can make is you think that's all the only people in the world are the people in that room, and you try looking for the best options in that room, where really you might have better luck or better prospects by simply being out in public doing what it is you enjoy, whether it's a run club, whether you enjoy crochet, whether you go to a reading club at your local library. Maybe you're going to meet better people in those environments who are better aligned with you. And so when I say do it in person, don't limit yourself to in-person dating events. The obvious advantage of an in-person dating event is everybody's single, so I think it lowers the anxiety for going and talking to somebody. But really, if that's all you're relying on, I don't think it's great, because you will meet great people out in the public. Like, there could be a single person who just hasn't been hit with the digital marketing to go to whatever event that you went to, right? They might not use Instagram, so they haven't seen the same Instagram ad that led you to the event you went to. So don't limit yourself to any specific form of dating, be it online or in-person events. Go out into the real world. See if there's people you can meet out there. That's very important. So I'm going to end this episode here. I think if I was going to summarize things, I think be kind. Dating is very tough. I think be kind means be kind to yourself. Like I said, don't be afraid to end a conversation because you know it's not going somewhere you want. At the same time, also be kind to other people. When you let them down, do it nicely, or actually let them down rather than completely disappearing, right? Give them an anti-ghost text. Let them know, hey, it's really nice meeting you, but this is why I don't want to go and date you if they do reach out to you. And then be proactive. I think that's important. There's so many people who go through life being passive. There's a large subset of guys who I think are just afraid, who haven't developed the skills. But deep down, all guys know that they need to get out there and go speak. Because as men, you kind of know that the only way for you to meet people is for you to put the energy in. For women, proactivity is very different because especially when you're younger, when you're in university, high school, whatever, you're probably very used to being on the receiving end and being more passive in dating. As you get older, that changes. And so it's very important for women, I think, of any age to be proactive. In fact, the most successful women I've seen in dating have been very clear about what they want, and then they've been proactive about getting it. Like I told you about that story of my colleague, she went and did 3 to 4 coffee dates every week for like a month. And I'm so impressed. Like, that's the best story I've heard, because you actually live by your values. And that means that you literally met with, if she met with 16 people, there were 15 people who she didn't get along with. She wasn't looking for, I need perfect chemistry on every bloody date. She was willing to go out and meet people for coffee, and at the same time, be kind to yourself. If you're not enjoying it, let them know and bail. Keep it something light. Keep it to coffee. So you have the option to either prolong it if it's great, or say, hey, great, it was nice meeting you. I don't think this is for me. End of story. And so, yeah, be kind, be proactive, and be retrospective. Actually think about what you're doing, about who you are, the actions you're taking, your shortcomings. It's great to have a laundry list. It's great to know what you want, but you also need to think about what you are for other people. There's always that joke that, what do you bring to the table? And you joke that I am the table, which is a funny joke. I've probably used it myself once or twice, but you can't actually be the table. You also need to think about what you bring into a partnership. It's very important for both as men, as women. It's important to think about, yes, you're attracted to the other person, great. And what is it that you add to their lives? And so go ahead and live your values. Like I said, there's a difference between marketing and sales. Some people are great at sales, but they fail with marketing and vice versa. And so understand the difference between the two. I think marketing is living your values. Obviously, it's improving who you are mentally and physically. And this is something that's going to seep from the inside out. I truly believe that. There are people I meet and they just radiate this kind of positivity. It's really nice. And that's very attractive. There are also people who radiate negativity, and that's very unattractive, even though they might actually be physically attractive people. Your internal value system is your marketing. And even though you might not be going out and pushing your material, people will come across those vibes. At the same time, you need to go and sell. You need to go out, get in front of people, part of being proactive, and sell who it is who you are. You need to sell that to other people. And of course, don't push too hard. So these are some of my observations on dating for the past few months. I'm going to keep doing it. I don't know if I'm going to do other dating episodes down the track. If people do enjoy this, well, I will. But I find that as somebody who's single in their 30s, as a guy, I interact with a lot of my female friends who are in their 20s to 30s, and it's very interesting to get everyone's opinions on dating and how they're going and where the pitfalls are. So that's my episode there. To everyone listening to this, I wish you great success on all your endeavors. You've just made it through another episode of Monologues by Hassie. It brings me great pleasure to know that you made it to the end. To listen to more episodes, subscribe on your favorite podcast app or visit monologuesbyhassie.com. Thanks for swinging by.